Dear intercessors, we are right now in the month of repentance on the biblical calendar. It is the 6th month leading up to all the feasts in the 7th month that prophesy about the coming of Messiah. It says in the book of Amos, "Prepare, O Israel, to meet your God." And Peter the apostle wrote in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 11 and 12, "Since all these things are thus to be dissolved, what sort of people ought you to be in lives of holiness and godliness, waiting for and hastening the coming of the day of God?" This month of repentance is also called the month of the bride, because the biblical Hebrew name of this month is Elul, which can be seen as an abbreviation of the words of the bride in the Song of Solomon, chapter 6 and verse 2. Ani ledodi vedodi li. I am my beloved's, and my beloved's is mine. It's a time to seek close fellowship with God, to renew our first love in expectation of the wedding supper of the Lamb. During this month, which this year is lasting from the 3rd of September until the Feast of Trumpets on the 2nd of October, this feast that talk about the return, the coming of Messiah at the sound of the trumpet. All Jews are also praying Psalm 27 every morning in the synagogue. This is a psalm that is describing a cry for a closer fellowship with God. I'm going to read from verse 4 and then also from verse 7 and 8. "One thing I have asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple." Verse 7, "Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud. Be gracious to me and answer me. You have said, seek my face. My heart says to you, your face, Lord, do I seek. Hide not your face from me." So during this month of repentance and the month of the bride, also the shofar is blown every morning in the synagogues to wake up God's people and call them to repentance. And that's why we have issued a call to 3 days of fasting and prayer to seek God during this month on 3 days from Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, September 24 to 26. And this is in line with what is spoken in the prophet Joel in chapter 2. I'm going to read from verse 12 and then later further down in the chapter. "Yet even now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting, with weeping, and with mourning. And rend your hearts and not your garments. Return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, and he relents over disaster. Who knows whether he will not turn and relent and leave a blessing behind him, a grain offering and a drink offering for the Lord your God." And then it comes in verse 15. "Blow the trumpet in Zion, consecrate a fast, call a solemn assembly, gather the people, consecrate the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children, even nursing infants. Let the bridegroom leave his room and the bride her chamber. Between the vestibule and the altar, let the priests, the ministers of the Lord, weep and say, spare your people, O Lord, and make not your heritage a reproach, a byword among the nations. Why should they say among the peoples, where is their God?" We encourage all of you to set aside these 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, September 24 to 26, together with intercessors around the world, to a time of prayer and fasting to seek God. And I encourage you to spread this appeal to as many as you can, and let us together seek the Lord as never before. There are things that cannot be removed except through prayer with fasting. When the disciples asked the Lord why they could not drive out a demon from a boy that was plagued by this demon, Yeshua answered them and said, this kind can only be driven out through prayer with fasting. And so fasting is a biblical way of humbling ourselves before the Lord. I'm going to read from 1 Peter chapter 5, where he says at the end of verse 5, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you. So as I said, fasting is a biblical way to humble ourselves before God. And I encourage you to fast in any way that you can, maybe only on water or maybe on juices, or at least 1 or 2 meals a day. Let's join together and cry out to God for him to have mercy on us and to restore us and to draw us closer to him, that we will see his glory appear in our midst. I'm going to continue to read in Joel chapter 2 the promises that follow this call to fasting and prayer and repentance. From verse 18, then the Lord became jealous for his land and had pity on his people. The Lord answered and said to his people, behold, I'm sending you grain, wine, and oil, and you will be satisfied, and I will no more make you a reproach among the nations. Verse 21, fear not, O land, be glad and rejoice, for the Lord has done great things. Fear not, be glad, O children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God, for he has given the early rain for your vindication. He has poured down for you abundant rain, the early and the latter rain as before. The threshing floors shall be full of grain, the vats shall overflow with wine and oil. I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the hopper, the destroyer, and the cutter, my great army which I sent among you. You shall eat in plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God, who has dealt wondrously with you. And my people shall never again be put to shame. And then it comes in verse 28, and it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. Even on the male and female servants in those days I will pour out my spirit. Friends, let us join together in fasting and in prayer, in trusting God that he will be faithful to his promises and do wonderful things in answer to prayer. So I encourage you, spread this appeal to as many as you can, and let us set aside these 3 days of fasting and prayer, September 24 to 27, and let's see what God will do to restore us in power and in glory, just like he has promised in his word. Thank you, and may God bless you. Shalom.